Again, it would be just, I think you guys know that, I guess you've had Senator Chris Connors here, or, oh, okay, I thought you spoke to him. Okay, well, however you do it. They're and you know, I want to just spend another little bit of time. You all know we have this redistricting thing. I'm speaking especially for the folks in Jackson. You have new legislators that go around that are going to be on the ballot. But it's great. I left a list of the elected officials in the county and the candidates in this go-around in all the different towns. Jackson, you don't happen to have your local officials up this year, but a list with all their addresses. I should have brought county directories that have the addresses of all the state legislators in there. But this is where most of this stuff comes from that I have to work with. I'm not a legislator. I don't go to Trenton. They're the ones that pass these laws, and without people telling them the stuff you're doing is garbage, it's wrong, it presents fraud, we're not going to get anywhere. But I mean, it's certainly, I belong to my 21 colleagues in the 21 counties in New Jersey. We have a clerks association, and I'll certainly bring it up, and we have someone that tries to represent us in Trenton, but depending on what side of the aisle you're from and where you are, and where I happen to be a Republican, and Republicans are in the minority in both the Senate and the Assembly. And until that changes, guess what? Bills go through normally, Democrat bills. And then we have a Republican governor that's probably going to veto some of those. So if they have enough votes to override, we can get it through. Yes.
What party, what was the impetus in sending out these absentee ballots? Who pushed for that?
The legislation, just don't, if I had a Bible, I could swear to it. But I'm pretty sure if you went back and looked at the bill, and also don't hold me to this, it's several years ago that it passed, but I'm almost certain it was Democrat, Senate, and Assembly people that were the sponsors of the bills. And I know it was a Democrat governor that signed the bill. Whether it was Corzine or McGreevey, I'm not sure, but definitely it was all, you know, under the control of the Democrats in the legislature.
What is the cost of this? How much is this adding to our state budget? Because you have to design them, you have to draw them up, you have to print them, you have to mail them back.
We always had the absentee ballots, but as I said, it's the volume has increased, so ergo, you know, the postage, as you say.
I didn't ask for one, and I got one.
Okay.
Why are we wasting money like this?
I mean, you should not, yeah.
This is an expensive proposition.
The other thing they did is they complicated the application to confuse people in that they have on there, do you wish to receive one for the remainder of the year, for all future elections? And sometimes people check that off accidentally, and they get it. We get it all. I hear the same thing what you're telling me right here. I hear in my office that...
Do you know what the cost is? Do you know how much...
I would have to go back for each... I don't know the whole state because I don't run the state, but I'd have to go back for at least our county. And, you know, you'd have to say, okay, the cost for postage when we had the absentee system versus we have the mail, it definitely would be more because we have more volume.
Where can we get a hold of that information? Can I email you? Can you write me that information?
You could email me, sure. And I'll give you, I'll come over because I have my card and everything to give you. And what I also left on there is, I didn't get to some of the other information is, what our office does is we produce an election date calendar every year to try and give the candidates, the voters, anyone that's involved in the process. There are so many deadlines and regulations, you know, when do I file the petition? Where do I file it? If I want to register to vote, what's the deadline for that? So there aren't, obviously we're getting towards the end of the year, but I brought a few extra if anybody's interested. The other thing that's in the front of it is, the State Division of Election website phone number, the Election Law Enforcement Commission phone number, the County Board of Elections phone number and website, and my office phone number and website. Let's see, where else are we on here? Mail-in ballots, sample ballots, voting machine office. Yes.
Are you familiar with Congress' proposal?
I am, and
Do you see any weaknesses in it?
you know, to be honest with you, I haven't gone over it line by line in it, but I certainly, one of the, just to go through, let's just go through a little of the process for what it's worth of the polling place, because we spent time on mail-in ballots. How do we stop, and maybe this goes a little to the gentleman's point about the fraud of the mail ballots going in. Let's say I filled out the application, I got my paper ballot, I sent it in. What's to stop me now from going over to the firehouse down the street on election day and voting again? 3 o'clock the day before the election is the deadline that anyone can come in person. They stop. If you fill this application out a week before the election and it gets to my office, you're rejected. We do not issue anybody a ballot through the mail a week before the election. Now, the days leading up to Monday at 3 o'clock the day before the election, you have to come in person, just like you would at the polls, and fill out an application, present identification, and you're issued a ballot then. Everybody that applied through my office to vote by mail is then produced on a printout. All the applications, all the signatures on the applications, copies are made, the originals are sent over to the Board of Elections, and they're matched up with every paper ballot that goes over to their office that they open up so they can trace, okay, Joe Smith is on the list from the county clerk, he applied, he received the ballot, here's his ballot. They see a ballot that shows up and they didn't apply, that ballot is not going to be counted. The polling place issue. I'm over at the firehouse. I filled out one of these and I already voted. And I go up to the thing. The poll worker has a printout of every individual, and the book that they have would show that Joe Smith voted by mail-in ballot. They cannot vote at the polls that day. The tracking, at least from our standpoint. I mean, you also see, besides fraud, I've seen examples where this information is not helpful, and the poll worker training is so critical. I was at my polling place a couple of years ago. I never vote this way. I go to the polls. I like to go and see what's going, you know. In any event, a gentleman there had voted by this paper ballot thing, and he wasn't there to vote. He had his actual ballot. He forgot to mail it back to Tom's River, and he knew it's got to get back there by 8 o'clock at the same time the polls close. They cannot, just like we were talking about the military that comes through the mail later. So the poll worker told him, and this was like, I don't know, 5:30 or something, and the polls looked at his 8 o'clock, says, that's too late, you know, tough luck. You can't vote here because you voted that way, and you can't. I said, if you want your ballot to count and you drive that up to Tom's River and you get there before 8 o'clock, you can personally deliver it, your vote will be counted. So that's another thing. It's not, has nothing to do with fraud, but that's another critical element of this process. And unfortunately, if a poll worker isn't astute, you know, any of you want to be interested in doing that, I know they always have a problem. I've suggested, you talk about a lot of legislators I've talked to, I said, why don't you get these, you know, good young men and women that maybe in college locally and to earn some credit, get them to train them in democracy and to work at the polls and learn the system. And so as they grow older, you'll have a new wave of people there. But that's so important. I could say you could design the best voting system, have the best laws, have everything, But remember the human end of all this. I mean, our elections lie in the hands of volunteers, basically, that are manning polls from 6 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock at night. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Well, as you can see, I'll leave you with this. This is what I tell all my employees, and this is, I don't know if most people don't even know what a county clerk does. We also record your deeds, your mortgages, documents to your property. It's a big part of our office. But I tell all my employees, just remember this. When somebody comes in from the public and they come to our counter, whether it's to get a passport, something to do about elections recording, that this may be their only time ever in a government office, and that could be you on the other side of that counter. So treat them like it was you there waiting. And when you don't feel like doing that anymore, then don't work for me anymore. And I'm going to leave when I don't feel that way, because I like it. I love it. Thanks for having me. I know it ain't keep it up. Keep it up. I'll take the impact. Keep it up. And then I owe this lady.
That's okay. No, that's very good. Thank you very much. Big hand for Scott. Thank you, Scott.